There is a moment in every man's life when he must decide what he stands for, not what he says he stands for, not what sounds honorable in conversation, but what his bones, his blood, his faith, and his soul are willing to die for. Most people fear death. They run from anything that even resembles danger, discomfort, or confrontation. They bow to convenience. They surrender to pressure. They accept defeat long before death is ever a possibility, long before any real risk has stepped into the arena. But the men who build history, who shift generations, who carry God's purpose like a sword in their hand, they see death differently. Because defeat isn't just losing. Defeat is choosing the easier path when your spirit is begging you to rise. Defeat is accepting a life beneath the one God designed you for. Defeat is the slow decay of potential, a death worse than any physical ending. Death is a moment. Defeat is a lifestyle. A man who fears defeat becomes a slave to the world around him. A man who fears dishonor becomes a weapon in the hands of God. God did not create you to bow. He did not breathe his own life into you so you could live like a shadow. You were created for dominion, real authority, earned through courage, obedience, and sacrifice. There is a warrior inside you, a man built for struggle, a man who is supposed to stare his giants in the eyes and say, "If you want my crown, come and take it." You are not here to survive. You are here to conquer the battles assigned to your name. Yes, assigned. Your hardships are not random. Your challenges are not accidents. Your opposition is not a mistake. What stands against you exists to reveal what God placed within you. The enemy knows something about you that you often forget. You are dangerous. Dangerous to darkness. Dangerous to excuses. Dangerous to every lie that says you are too small. So the enemy pressures you with comfort, with fear, with hesitation, with memories of who you used to be. He wants you to surrender without fighting, because he knows he cannot defeat a man who refuses to quit. The greatest power a man can possess is the resolve to say, "I will die before I let myself be defeated." Not because your life ends in war, but because your spirit refuses to accept the chains of mediocrity. Your purpose demands a price. Your calling has a cost. Your vision requires sacrifice, and sacrifice is painful. Sacrifice looks like loss. Sacrifice feels like death. But every death to weakness resurrects strength. Every death to fear resurrects faith. God honors the man who honors his mission. This is the law written into creation. Those who bend, break. Those who bow, fade. But those who stand, rise. There will be days when everything in you screams, "Quit." But a man of God remembers who commands his breath. There will be nights when doubt slips into your bones like poison. But a warrior remembers his armor is not made of flesh. Death over defeat is not reckless, it is righteous. It is saying, "I refuse a life that shrinks my soul. I refuse to hand over what God gave me. I refuse to walk off the battlefield while my destiny is still calling my name." You have one journey, one story, one life to test whatever heaven saw in you. When you stand before God at the end of your days, you will not be asked if you lived safely. You will be asked if you lived faithfully. Did you bury the talents God placed in your hands, or did you multiply them? Did you let fear write your story, or did you step forward despite shaking hands? Did you guard your gifts, or did you wield them like a sword? Men who leave a legacy are not remembered because they avoided death. They are remembered because they refused defeat. Today, begin your transformation. Die to excuses. Die to doubt. Die to weakness, so you can rise into the life only a warrior can attain. A life worthy of the breath God gave you. A life worthy of your scars. A life worthy of heaven's attention. This is the creed. I will choose death over defeat. Every single time. Because anything less is not living. If a man wishes to rise, he must first make peace with the possibility of falling. If he wants to win, he must risk losing. If he wants to live with purpose, he must risk everything that stands in the way of that purpose, including comfort, validation, safety, and sometimes even acceptance. A warrior's path is not glamorous. It is not lined with applause. It is built on early mornings when no one is watching, silent battles fought within the mind, and decisions that look insane to those who settled for less. The world will tell you to be realistic. Be cautious. Stay within the lines. Follow the pattern. Don't challenge the system. But greatness, real greatness, is never born from obedience to mediocrity. Every man who changed history had to first change himself. He had to kill the part of his soul that wanted life to be easy. There is a voice inside every man that whispers, "Stop. You've done enough. Rest. You've earned this comfort. Quit." No one will blame you. But the men who live by faith recognize that voice for what it is, the language of defeat wearing the disguise of self-care. True self-respect is not pampering yourself with excuses. True self-respect is fulfilling what you were destined to accomplish, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because pressure is the proof of potential, and pain is the process of power. You must embrace what others escape. You must walk where others turn back. You must force yourself forward when everything inside you wants to collapse. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because you refuse to let suffering define you. A man becomes a weapon when he decides that nothing will break his resolve. Not disappointment, not fear, not failure, not rejection, not delay. Defeat is a mindset long before it becomes a result. If you tell yourself, "There's no way," then you have already surrendered. If you tell yourself, "Maybe someday," but when you tell yourself, "I will find a way or die trying," then the world has no option but to move out of your path. Faith turns impossible into inevitable. But faith is not blind optimism. It's not pretending everything is fine. Faith acknowledges the size of the obstacle and still chooses to charge at it head-on. It says, "Even if the storm drowns me, I would rather die a warrior than live a coward." A man who chooses death over defeat does not negotiate with fear. He does not sit at the table with doubt. He does not give excuses permission to stay. He wakes up each day with a vow, "I will not waste the breath God gives me." You are not here to sit on the sidelines of your own life. You were placed here to conquer something, to build something, to rise through the fire and emerge as the kind of man others can trust to lead. But leadership is not granted. It is proven in battle. And your battles are not mistakes. They are refining you, forging you, transforming you. The path of purpose demands the destruction of weakness. Every time you push yourself when you feel like quitting, weakness dies. Every time you take responsibility instead of blaming circumstances, weakness dies. Every time you discipline your mind, your body, your habits, weakness dies. And with every death of weakness, your true self rises, bolder, sharper, closer to the man God intended. Understand this clearly. The strength you admire in others was purchased with 1,000 silent sacrifices. No man is born unbreakable. He becomes unbreakable by refusing to stay broken. You will experience setbacks. You will fail. You will be betrayed. You will be misunderstood. You will be underestimated. You will face moments where walking away feels like the smartest option. But champions don't choose what is smart. They choose what is right. To choose defeat is to choose regret. And regret is a poison that eats away a man's soul for the rest of his life. Better to fall exhausted on the path toward greatness than to sit comfortably in the chair of mediocrity. Better to die with your sword in your hand than to live with your potential rotting inside you. Better to be remembered for courage than forgotten in the crowd of cowards. This is not a motivational slogan. It's a command to your spirit. Stand up, strengthen yourself, stay the course. Life will not slow down for you. Your destiny will not wait forever. The window to become who you were created to be is open now, and it is closing with every day wasted on fear. The question is simple. Will you rise or will you retreat? Will you conquer or will you collapse? Will you live or will you merely exist? You already know the answer. Because your heart beats with the truth, I would rather give everything I have than spend a lifetime wondering who I could have been. This is the resolve of a warrior. This is the vow of a man who chooses death over defeat. And the world will learn your name, not because you survived, but because you refused to bow. The greatest enemy a man will ever face does not live outside of him. It is not a rival. It is not a critic. It is not society. The enemy that destroys the most men lives in their own mind. Every war on the battlefield is first won or lost in the invisible inner arena, in beliefs, in self-command, in the discipline to reject weakness and embrace responsibility. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Most men never realize this. They think the world is holding them back. They think opportunity is unfairly given. They think success is a matter of luck or the favor of others. So they sit and wait for something outside of themselves to change. But a warrior knows the truth. If you do not conquer your inner world, your outer world will conquer you. There is a constant battle taking place in the mind, a fight between the man you are and the man you were created to be. The outcome is decided moment by moment, decision by decision, thought by thought. When you wake up, the war begins. A voice tells you to sleep a little longer, to skip the hard task, to do it tomorrow. That voice is not harmless. That voice is the strategy of defeat. Every small surrender becomes a habit, and every habit becomes a destiny. The men who become leaders do not have quieter fears. They simply refuse to obey them. They choose discipline over desire. They choose purpose over pleasure. They choose the hard path, not because they enjoy the suffering, but because they know where it leads. The book of Proverbs teaches that as a man thinks in his heart, so he becomes. Thought is the architect of destiny. If a man believes he is weak, he will act weak. If a man believes he is broken, he will remain broken. If a man believes he cannot rise, he will never stand. But if a man believes he was made to overcome, nothing on earth can chain him. Greatness begins the moment a man rejects the lie that he is powerless. The first battlefield, self-doubt. The second, fear. The third, temptation. The fourth, distraction. The fifth, the comfort that kills ambition. Every man who gives up does so long before the world sees him stop. He quits quietly in his own mind. That is why the warrior trains himself not only physically, but mentally, spiritually, and morally. Muscles do not make a conqueror. Money does not make a leader. Position does not make a protector. Character does. Character is built when you hold the line, when excuses offer an easy escape. It is built when you tell your mind, "You serve me," not the other way around. The ancient samurai believed that a warrior dies before every battle, meaning he accepts the worst possible outcome so that fear loses its grip. If death is already embraced, there is nothing left to take from him. And a man without fear of loss becomes unstoppable. Because fear is the last chain that keeps greatness locked inside a cage. When fear falls, the real man rises. To choose death over defeat is to declare, "I will not let my weakness win. I will not allow my fears to speak louder than my faith. I will not betray my purpose for pleasure. I will not allow comfort to bury my calling." Your mind is your kingdom. Defend it like your life depends on it, because it does. The world cannot crush a man whose soul refuses to kneel. The forces of mediocrity cannot manipulate a man who thinks with clarity and conviction. Temptation cannot seduce a man who lives by principle instead of impulse. Do not underestimate the importance of organizing your thoughts, your habits, your priorities. A chaotic mind leads to a chaotic life, and chaos invites defeat. But a man who disciplines his mind builds a fortress no enemy can breach. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "The greatest danger occurs at the moment of victory. Victory breeds comfort. Comfort breeds softness. Softness breeds defeat. Therefore, the battle never ends. Not until your final breath. A true warrior lives with a quiet aggression, a readiness, a sacred pressure inside him that refuses to allow stagnation. He is always sharpening his blade, always studying his enemy, always strengthening his spirit, because evil is always looking for the moment you stop fighting. So do not stop. Even when you conquer one mountain, turn and search for a taller one. Even when you win one war, prepare for the next. Even when you rise, keep your humility, for pride blinds leaders before they fall. Victory is not the end, it is the beginning of the next test. To be a man is to live ready for war, spiritually, mentally, physically, knowing that the greatest threats do not always appear as enemies. Sometimes they appear as comfort, ease, pleasure, and distraction. You must know this truth. The battle inside you is the birthplace of the hero you are becoming. So fight and keep fighting. Until the day the war ends, or until the day you do. Not because you crave struggle, but because you refuse to let struggle define you. Not because you love the war, but because you will never bow to defeat. Weak men dream of a life without struggle. Strong men understand. Struggle is the greatest privilege God can give a warrior. Pain is not a punishment. Pain is information. Pain is training. Pain is the disguise God uses to deliver transformation. When a man refuses pain, he refuses growth. When he runs from hardship, he runs from his own potential. The ancient Greeks believed that excellence, arete, could only be forged through trial. A smooth sea, they said, never made a skilled sailor. Alexander the Great once declared, "Through the very hardships we triumph." Hardship is the gym of the soul. It is where the calluses of character are formed. It is where a man learns to keep going long after "I'm tired" has begged him to quit. You cannot expect to rise if you fear the climb. You cannot expect to lead if you fear responsibility. You cannot expect greatness while hiding from the weight that creates it. The modern world tells men to seek comfort, choose convenience, avoid difficulty, take the easy path. But comfort destroys more men than failure ever will. Comfort is a silent executioner. It kills slowly, quietly, without resistance. A man who never puts himself through the fire will never become fire. He will only become ashes. God does not shield his greatest warriors from struggle. He thrusts them into it. He allowed David to face lions before facing Goliath. He allowed Joseph to face slavery before ruling Egypt. He allowed Moses to wander before leading a nation. The men who change the world first endure the world. Pain is the process God uses to separate the ones who only desire greatness from the ones who are truly willing to pay its cost. There is always a cost. Comfort demands no sacrifice, but comfort also produces no strength, no courage, no wisdom, no legacy. You say you want a strong spirit, yet you resist the very heat that would refine you. You say you want discipline, yet you avoid the struggle that requires it. You say you want a calling, yet you fear the burden that accompanies responsibility. You cannot reject pain and accept greatness at the same time. The two are inseparable. The samurai lived by the principle of pain over pleasure, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they understood that pain reveals truth. Pain reveals who you really are. Pain reveals whether you are committed or merely curious. Pain reveals the difference between intention and conviction. Every man has intentions. Few have conviction. Conviction is proved in suffering, not in comfort. When the body aches, the spirit is exposed. When the heart is tired, the mind is tested. When the soul is wounded, faith is revealed. That moment, the one where you want to quit, that is where greatness is born. Not in the flashy highlights, not in the applause, not in success. Greatness begins in silence. When no one sees you choosing to rise instead of fold, there is a relationship between pain and power. God does not bless a man with strength unless he first gives him something to lift. Burden is the seed of strength. When life becomes heavy, understand you are being strengthened. You are being shaped. You are being promoted through pressure. The diamond does not complain when the pressure increases. It becomes what it was destined to be. If you could see what your struggle is preparing you for, you would thank God for every tear. Do not misunderstand. Pain is not the goal. Pain is the path. Do not glorify suffering. Glorify what suffering builds. When the storm hits you, thank God you are not weak. When the test arrives, thank God He found you worthy of testing. When the nights get long, know that dawn is only given to those who endure darkness. You can refuse the struggle and choose an easy life, but then do not expect to be respected. A man who escapes challenge becomes a man who others cannot count on. He becomes a man who collapses when the world needs him most. Pain is not here to break you. It is here to remove what was never strong enough to stay. Every blow is removing weakness. Every test is teaching endurance. Every hardship is building honor. God is not destroying you. He is revealing you. So embrace it. Stand firm in the fire. Lean into the weight that is trying to shape you. Say to the storm, you will not take me. I was built for this. Say to the pressure, this is my training ground. Say to yourself, I choose death over defeat, pain over regret, sacrifice over comfort. not because you desire suffering, but because you refuse to be a man who flinches when responsibility demands strength. This is not a life of ease. It is a life of purpose, and purpose always requires pain. Wear your scars like armor, because they are proof you were tested and refused to die. Honor is not spoken. Honor is carried. Every man claims he wants respect, but few men are willing to bear the weight required to earn it. Honor demands sacrifice. Honor demands self-governance. Honor demands you do what is right, especially when doing what is wrong is easier, faster, and more rewarding in the moment. A man's honor is proven when no one is watching. The ancient Romans taught their soldiers, virtue stands even when no one applauds her. Meaning, true integrity is invisible until destiny reveals it at the appointed time. You can fake status. You can buy appearances. You can manipulate perception. But you cannot fake honor. Honor is a lifestyle, a code, a commitment to be accountable to God before being praised by men. Honor is doing the work no one thanks you for. Honor is protecting those who never notice. Honor is keeping your word when promises hurt. Modern men chase validation. Ancient men pursued virtue. Which one are you becoming? To be honorable is to hold yourself to a higher standard than the world expects. It is to lead even when others fail. It is to carry responsibility that crushes lesser men. Honor requires backbone where others melt. It requires silence where others gossip. It requires composure where others break. The word teaches, better is a man with a good name than riches that fade. Money can purchase luxury, but only honor can purchase legacy. There is a battle for your integrity every single day. Temptation whispers, who will know? Why not take the shortcut? It doesn't matter. But an honorable man responds, God sees. I see, it matters. He refuses corruption, even if it costs position. He refuses lust, even if desire burns. He refuses deceit, even if truth feels dangerous. Honor is found where fear is defeated. A man with honor becomes dangerous because he is not controlled by gain, pressure, or public opinion. You cannot bribe him. You cannot shame him. You cannot manipulate him, because his loyalty belongs to God, not the crowd, and that terrifies the world. When a man has honor, he becomes a pillar. People rely on him. Responsibility seeks him out. Leadership becomes a burden he willingly lifts. They trust his voice, not because it is loud, but because it has weight. Words backed by honor hit deeper than words backed by ego. A man without honor is like a sword made of wood. It may look the part, but it will shatter the moment battle begins. Honor steals the blade. Great generals, ancient kings, and warriors who changed nations were remembered not for perfection, but for conviction. King Leonidas stood with 300, not for glory, but because honor would not permit surrender. Joan of Arc faced fire because honor refused to kneel to injustice. Abraham Lincoln once said, I must stand with anyone who stands right, and stand with him while he is right. That is honor, aligning with righteousness, not convenience. Honor chooses sacrifice over safety, truth over popularity, duty over desire, because a man without honor may live more comfortably, but he dies with nothing worth remembering. Understand this, honor is heavy, but that weight is what makes a man unbreakable. When the responsibility feels overwhelming, you are being chosen. When the expectations rise, you are being elevated. Honor demands pressure because honor is forged under pressure. If God gives you a heavy calling, it is because He sees strength in you that you have not yet recognized. Do not ask Him to reduce the weight. Ask Him to increase your shoulders. The honorable man becomes a fortress for others. He becomes a shield against chaos. He becomes a presence that brings order to disorder. Where he stands, things align. Where he leads, people rise. Where he speaks, truth anchors. And here lies the secret. Honor does not seek power. Honor earns it. It is not the loudest man who leads. It is the most dependable. It is not the flashiest man who commands respect. It is the man who keeps showing up. Leadership is not a privilege. It is the price paid by the honorable. When God looks for a man to carry His mission, He does not look for talent first. He looks for character. Talent without honor is a loaded weapon in the hands of a child. But honor with even a small amount of talent can move mountains. If you want God to trust you with more, show Him you are faithful with what you have. Honor starts small. How you speak, how you treat people, how you show up when no one is watching, how you keep promises that inconvenience you. Every small act of integrity is a brick in the foundation of a life that will not collapse. This world will tempt you to compromise. Evil will try to buy your loyalty. Weak men will encourage shortcuts. But hear this clearly. You cannot be both comfortable and honorable. You cannot be both liked and righteous. You cannot be both accepted and set apart. To live with honor, you must be willing to be misunderstood. You must be willing to stand alone. You must be willing to carry weight others refuse to touch. Because the honorable man knows defeat is acceptable, dishonor is not. Death over defeat. Death over betraying the calling placed upon him. Let them laugh at your commitment. Let them mock your convictions. Let them misunderstand your motives. When the dust settles, honor is what stands. And if honor stands in you, then God stands with you. Discipline is the difference between a man who dreams and a man who is remembered. Every man wants strength, but few want the struggle that produces it. Every man wants the throne, but few want the burden of ruling themselves first. Endurance is the purest measure of discipline. It is the ability to remain unwavering while the world tries to break your will. A disciplined man is not controlled by comfort, impulse, or emotion. He is governed by principle, purpose, and vision. He doesn't wait for motivation. He doesn't require applause. He does what must be done, even when desire is absent. The Stoics would say, do what is necessary. Then do more than what is necessary. It is a law of nature. Excellence is never an accident. God offers men a calling, but discipline is the price required to walk into it. Do not ask for destiny. If you are unwilling to sacrifice your laziness, do not ask for elevation. If you still bow to distraction, do not ask for greatness. If you refuse the grind that produces it, a man's discipline is tested in silence. When the alarm rings at dawn, do you rise? When temptation whispers, do you fall? When fatigue screams, do you persist? Your success is not built in the spotlight. It is built in hidden hours. In late nights and early mornings, in the choices that no one celebrates. There is a reason most men fail. They treat their excuses like truth. I am tired. It is too hard. No one cares. It can wait. And every excuse, no matter how small, steals a piece of your future. Do not negotiate with weakness. Do not compromise with comfort. Do not reason with temptation. Weakness always speaks with logic, but it is a logic that leads to regret. Understand this truth. Your mind is your greatest enemy before it becomes your greatest weapon. Master the mind, and you master your life. The ancient samurai lived by a principle: if you cannot control yourself, you cannot control anything. A man without discipline is a kingdom without walls. Any intruder can invade. A single temptation can ruin him. A single distraction can derail him. A single moment of weakness can destroy what took years to build. But a man with discipline becomes unstoppable. Because nothing in the world can defeat a man who refuses to defeat himself. Endurance is not merely the ability to continue, it is the will to continue correctly. Anyone can move forward when it is easy, but the disciplined man moves forward when everything inside him resists. There is a sacred perseverance that God rewards when you remain faithful in the desert, when you keep walking without evidence, when you refuse to surrender to the dryness of the journey. Abraham waited decades for promise. Joseph remained unbroken through betrayal and prison. Job worshipped through suffering that would shatter ordinary men. God is not looking for men who obey when blessings flow. He is looking for men who obey when blessings delay. That is discipline. That is faith under fire. That is what shapes a man God can trust. A disciplined man trains every part of himself, the body, to be a tool, not a prison. The mind, to think clearly, not chaotically. The spirit, to remain aligned with God's voice, not the world's noise. He chooses order over chaos, purpose over pleasure, structure over impulse. He understands time is not to be wasted. Time is a sacred resource God grants once, never to be returned. Every wasted hour is a stolen blessing. Every delayed decision is a delayed destiny. Most men lose not because they are weak, but because they are inconsistent. They start strong and quit quietly. They build momentum and then let it die. They work hard until feelings change. Discipline is the refusal to let feelings lead. You can grieve, you can bleed, you can crawl, but you do not stop. Endurance is the warrior's oath: I continue until completion. Even when hurt, even when progress seems invisible, because true discipline does not measure progress, it measures obedience to purpose. A disciplined man believes the work he does today will become the victory he sees tomorrow. He trusts the process, he trusts the grind, he trusts God's timing. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "Victory belongs to the most persevering." Endurance is the attribute that separates the conqueror from the conquered. Men who endure rise, men who quit kneel. And you are not called to kneel to weakness. Every day discipline is tested. Every day you decide who you are. When the world says, rest, you say, rise. When excuses say, wait, you say, move. When doubt says, stop, you say, continue. Not because you enjoy the fight, but because you refuse defeat. Let this truth settle deeply into you. A man who endures will outlast the enemy. A man who persists will outlive the threat. A man who remains disciplined will become unstoppable. Do not chase easy victories. Chase the victory that demands everything, the one that transforms you. Your destiny is not determined by your speed, but by your refusal to stop. Carry the discipline to endure, and the world will become too weak to hold you back. There comes a moment in every man's life when the world expects him to quit. A moment where defeat looks so certain, so absolute, that continuing seems foolish. It is in that moment that a man must decide what kind of existence he will live. Does he take the easy road of surrender, or does he embrace the harder path to fight, knowing the cost, knowing the pain, and still choosing combat over concession? Death over defeat begins as a whisper in the heart long before a battle ever appears. It's the mindset that says, "I will not die with unused courage still in me." A man's enemies aren't only flesh and bone. Often they are subtle: self-doubt, fear, laziness, indecision, insecurity. These foes creep in while you are tired, discouraged, isolated. They tell you you're not good enough. They convince you that your dream is too big. They whisper that you should settle, compromise, lower your standard. That is defeat disguised as comfort. Many men never taste victory, not because they were incapable, but because they surrendered to comfort long before the battle was over. A man must build a creed inside himself. I will burn before I bend. I will fall before I fold. I will suffer before I surrender. To choose death over defeat does not mean reckless destruction. It means refusing to betray your mission. It means if a part of you must die, let it be the part that is weak. If something must be sacrificed, let it be fear, not your destiny. There will be days you are exhausted, broken, bruised in spirit. Those are not signs to quit. They are signs you are getting close. Pressure only multiplies when destiny is near. Pain is often the final test before doors open. The man who rises is not the man who hasn't fallen. He is the man who keeps standing up after the world pushes him down. You must become the fire that refuses to be extinguished. The warrior who refuses to drop the sword. The spirit that refuses to bow before the enemy. Let the world witness a truth few accept. A man is not defeated when he is beaten. He is defeated only when he chooses not to rise again. So rise. Even when your knees shake, rise. Even when your lungs burn, rise. Even when your heart feels shattered, rise and remind life that you are a man who will die on his feet before he ever lives on his knees. Because the ones who choose death over defeat are the ones who history refuses to forget. Every man must establish a code, a personal law, something deeper than motivation, stronger than emotion, more permanent than circumstance. Motivation fades, feelings change with seasons, circumstances shift like storms. But a code, once written into your identity, becomes the compass that decides everything: what you will allow, what you will endure, and what you will never surrender. Your code is the invisible backbone of your soul, and at the foundation of that code is one unwavering principle: I would rather die trying than live quitting. The world worships results, trophies, and titles, but a real man understands that the most sacred victory is the one no one sees, the moment he refuses to betray himself. To choose death over defeat is not about dying in reality. It is about killing the version of you that bows to fear. Break this down. When a man says, "I can't do this," a part of him dies, the part that believed. When a man says, "Maybe tomorrow," another part dies, the part that took initiative. When he says, "It's too hard," the warrior inside him suffocates. Defeat doesn't strike once. It kills you slowly. If you do not declare war against that weakness, it will consume you. That's why you must harden your heart against surrender. A man without a code becomes a man without direction, tossed around by pressure and temptation. But a man with a code, he becomes a fortress. He becomes someone life can punch, break, slam against the ground, and he will still rise, teeth gritted, eyes burning, heart intact. His code gives him clarity. His code gives him purpose. His code gives him identity. Your code must contain unshakable truths like these. My will does not break. My faith does not faint. My dream does not die. My dream does not die. My integrity does not collapse. My courage does not run. My honor does not negotiate. It is about refusing to be conquered. Some days you will be tired. Some days you will feel alone. Some days you will want to lay down your armor and escape into comfort. But listen carefully. When a man abandons his code, he abandons himself. The voice inside that calls you higher, that's your real identity speaking. The voice that tells you to quit, that is, defeat, searching for a home. Never let it find one in you. A man is tested not when he is strong, but when he is weak. Not when he is winning, but when triumph seems impossible. Not when people cheer for him, but when no one believes he can go on. That is where your code matters. That is where your soul shows its true weight. Stand firm, stand proud, stand unbroken. You were not created to be average. You were not designed for easy paths. You were forged for resistance, shaped for pressure, built for adversity. Your bloodline traces back to conquerors, not cowards. So carry your code into every battlefield of your life. Let it be burned into your mind, carved into your heart, and reinforced through your actions. Because in this world, you will either die with your honor, or you will live without your soul. And only one of those is truly defeat. Greatness is not born in thought alone. It is forged in relentless action. A man may plan, strategize, pray, or reflect. Yet if he does not move, nothing changes. Faith without works is dead. Vision without execution is worthless. Discipline without movement is impotent. Every action compounds. Every choice matters. Every day spent hesitating is a day surrendered to mediocrity. A warrior understands that small, consistent steps toward his purpose build a momentum no opposition can resist. A single decisive move can change the course of a life. Repeated decisive moves craft a legacy. The world rewards results, but it respects consistency. One-time heroics are fleeting. One-time courage may inspire admiration for a moment, but repeated action builds unshakable credibility. Even the smallest steps, taken with relentless intention, move mountains over time. Consider the life of Isaac Newton. He didn't discover gravity by wishing or waiting. He observed, experimented, failed repeatedly, and worked tirelessly in solitude. His results changed the world, not because he had better luck, but because he acted relentlessly, even when progress seemed invisible. The modern man is addicted to instant gratification. He wants results now. He wants reward without effort. He wants acknowledgement without sacrifice. But the warrior knows the law of time. What is sown in discipline grows into harvest. What is sown in neglect withers into nothing. Every morning when you rise and face the day, you choose action or stagnation. You choose to move closer to your purpose or drift further into mediocrity. You choose the hard climb or the comfortable slide. To move with faith is to act even when the outcome is uncertain. To move with courage is to step forward even when fear threatens to paralyze you. To move with discipline is to adhere to your code, even when temptation calls louder than reason. Relentless action is the mark of a man God can trust with power. Because faith without execution is faith untested. Vision without effort is vision unrealized. Strength without challenge is strength unproven. Understand this clearly. The world does not reward potential. It does not honor promise. It recognizes results forged by relentless movement aligned with purpose. A man who acts with unwavering resolve, even against impossibility, forces doors to open that were previously sealed. Every action is a declaration. I will not wait for circumstances. I will create my destiny. I will rise or I will die trying. Every step forward, no matter how small, chips away at the walls of limitation. Every refusal to yield strengthens the spirit. Every commitment fulfilled builds the kind of momentum that no enemy, no delay, and no doubt can reverse. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "Take time to deliberate, but when the time for action has arrived, stop thinking and go in." Thinking without movement breeds hesitation. Hesitation breeds defeat. But decisive, relentless action creates inevitability. The disciplined man acts daily, purposefully, relentlessly. He does not wait for motivation, inspiration, or approval. He rises before dawn, trains when tired, works when discouraged, and persists when progress seems invisible. Action is the evidence of faith. Movement is the measure of commitment. Execution is the proof of character. Even when the path is lonely, even when obstacles tower, even when pain screams for surrender, a man committed to relentless action becomes unstoppable. He moves with God, aligned with destiny, refusing to accept anything less than his highest calling. Death over defeat is not merely a philosophy, it is a call to movement. Stop waiting for permission. Stop hoping for circumstances to change. Stop negotiating with weakness. The world will not bend to your dreams. You must bend to your discipline, sharpen your resolve, and act without pause. A man who acts relentlessly transforms fear into fuel, doubt into determination, struggle into strength. He leaves mediocrity behind because he understands stagnation is the ally of defeat, and movement is the ally of destiny. The law is immutable. Action compounds into mastery. Every effort, every sacrifice, every moment spent refusing to quit. These become the foundation of a life that refuses to be denied. It remembers the relentless. It remembers the man who stood firm, who acted consistently, who moved with faith and refused to bow. The man who chooses death over defeat does not live for applause. He does not toil for recognition, nor labor for fleeting praise. His aim is higher, eternal. His reward is not found in the fleeting shadows of the present, but in the unshakable foundation he lays for the generations that follow. Legacy is the natural consequence of unwavering courage, relentless action, and unbroken discipline. It is not granted by wealth, title, or popularity. It is earned in the unseen hours, the silent battles, the choices made when no one is watching. A man's legacy is the sum of his principles lived out in a world that rewards compromise. The scriptures remind us, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. But inheritance is more than material. It is character, it is wisdom, it is courage, it is faith. The man who lives for these things becomes immortal, not in the fleeting memory of men, but in the enduring echo of righteousness, strength, and influence. Consider the kings, generals, and philosophers of old. Their names endure not because life was easy for them, but because they refused to bend under pressure. They sacrificed comfort for duty, fleeting pleasure for eternal purpose. Alexander the Great's conquests reshaped the world, not merely through brute force, but through relentless vision and discipline. Marcus Aurelius's meditations still teach men thousands of years later because he lived a life aligned with principle. A man who moves with faith leaves a legacy that no storm can erode. Every act of courage becomes a stone in the foundation of history. Every decision to uphold truth over convenience strengthens the chain that binds generations to righteousness. Every refusal to compromise honor for gain becomes a beacon that guides others toward courage. This is the weight of destiny. God entrusts power, influence, and opportunity only to men who are ready to bear the consequences. Only to men who have proven their will through fire, sweat, and unyielding discipline. Only to men who have chosen consistently to endure, to act, and to honor their code. Death over defeat is not merely a principle, it is the blueprint of eternity. A man who dies unbroken leaves behind more than memories. He leaves a framework for others to rise. He demonstrates what it means to stand unmoved when the storm threatens, to fight when the world whispers surrender, to uphold what is true when mediocrity surrounds him. Do not chase approval. Do not seek temporary reward. Build something lasting in character, in faith, in courage, in discipline. The world will attempt to measure you by shallow metrics, but God sees the depth. And it is that depth that becomes your eternal signature. The warrior understands every life is finite, but every legacy can be infinite. Every moment of steadfast courage becomes a ripple that reaches far beyond the present. Every act of integrity becomes a torch that illuminates the path for others. Every sacrifice for purpose becomes a seed that grows into mountains. As you stand in the silence of your trials, remember this: your enemies, your doubts, your fears, and your pain are all part of the proving ground. They are the furnaces that refine your soul. They are the crucibles that forge the man God can trust with power. And when you emerge, unbroken and steadfast, your life becomes a testament, a declaration that death may claim your body, but defeat will never claim your spirit. This is the eternal truth. A man who lives unyielding, acts relentlessly, and refuses compromise leaves a legacy that death cannot touch. When history recounts men of strength, wisdom, and faith, it is not the ones who sought comfort or avoided struggle who are remembered. It is the men who embraced pain, who bore responsibility, who chose courage when cowardice beckoned, and who acted decisively when hesitation loomed. Your life, your code, your endurance. These are the markers of a man who refuses to die defeated. Every day is an opportunity to cement that legacy. Every choice, every action, every thought. They are bricks in the eternal structure of influence and honor you leave behind. Stand now and live with this awareness. You are the warrior of your own destiny. You are the guardian of your own integrity. You are the sculptor of a legacy that will outlast time itself. Death may come for your body. Circumstances may challenge your resolve. Pain may test your spirit. But defeat, real, soul-crushing defeat, has no claim on a man who refuses to bow, who chooses discipline over comfort, courage over fear, faith over doubt. So rise. Protect your honor. Bear the weight of responsibility. Endure the fires. Build with unwavering hands. Move with faith. And in every breath, every heartbeat, every decision, declare, I will die on my feet before I ever live on my knees. And when you have lived in this truth, you will leave behind not just a memory, but a legacy, a living testament to the man God can trust with power, a man whose life declares, unequivocally, death over defeat, eternity over compromise, legacy over surrender,